Let's get started. It's really great to have you here. This summit is a collection of dynamic speakers combined with expertise, and I could not be more excited to be here. My name is Shawntee Reed, and I'm the head of inclusion and diversity at Square. As your speaker, you may be wondering, who is she and what makes her credible on this subject matter? I have over 20 years of experience in financial services, retail, education, and now fintech. I have spent a lot of time in roles leading and building teams, establishing employee engagement programs, coaching and supporting leaders, and identifying how to create environments where our employees feel supported and can thrive in their careers. Most importantly, I have been inquisitive, a natural problem solver, and have been intentional to explore ways to educate, elevate, and create opportunities for people to learn and grow, exploring and developing their true selves as inclusive leaders. And I've been providing spaces for individuals to co-create solutions that are best for their organizations. I am an achievement enabler, which is why I'm really happy to talk to you today about the subject of building company culture and how we build an inclusive culture in a virtual world. We are all faced with the fact that the world is changing. The way we work has changed. Many organizations have been forced to transform into fully distributed workplaces almost overnight, exasperating existing barriers and creating new challenges related to fostering inclusive, effective workplaces. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I'm sure you have too. Now, midway through the presentation, you may be thinking, where is the hack? Is she going to give us the solutions? Instead, I will provide you with concepts that will sound familiar and encourage you to go back to your organizations and create solutions as a team for your employees. Before we dive into our content, let's take a mini poll to see where we are following on these following questions. These questions are from a survey administered by Paradigm in 2020. So please take the time to access the poll. This will appear on the right-hand side of your screen. You will see the questions and answer selections on the screen as well. I promise only a few simple questions. The first question, do you currently feel connected to your organization's company culture? Let's take a few minutes and give you the chance to fill that out. The answers are coming in. Just another second or two. Okay, we're seeing that, they keep coming in, but right now we're seeing that 69% of you say yes. You do currently feel connected to your organization's company culture. 8% is no, and 22% is reflected here as in progress. This is not a surprise, as we know that the opportunity to stay connected to your organization, leaders are certainly figuring out ways by which they can make that happen for their employees. And so the in progress is certainly something that I like to see, where we certainly want to move that no, that 8% to at least in progress or to a yes. The second question, please. Has your organization or team administered a survey to assess employees' needs for sustainable work in a virtual environment? Thank you for participating. We can see that we have a wide array of responses here. 71% so far is saying yes, 14% no, 11% in progress, and I don't know, the 3%. What I like to see is that 73% that organizations are in fact taking the time to administer a survey to assess where employees are relative to their needs to sustain their work in this virtual environment. And the 9% is certainly a reflection that there are individuals out there that is in progress thinking about how to make that happen. That 16%, we certainly realize that there is an opportunity to certainly move the needle forward there in terms of encouraging your respective organizations to take the time to assess and hear from their employees. The third question: does your organization provide resources to managers on how to support their virtual teams? You got it down pat. You're going from one question to the next. I can appreciate that. Some more responses are coming in. 50% says yes, 29% says no, 7% in progress, and 21% I don't know. The 57% is an indication that managers that may be in the audience is in fact being equipped with the resources they need to support their virtual teams. And that in progress is also an indicator that individuals are absolutely preparing to ensure that their managers can be successful in supporting them to have the resources they need for their virtual teams. And our fourth and final question: have you changed the way you work to address the challenges of the virtual environment? Take a few minutes to answer that, please. Thank you. So 79% is saying yes. You have changed the way you work to address the challenges of the virtual environment. 11% no, you're still adapting, and 8% of you are in progress. Thank you for participating in this poll. It is important to note here that we are all on this journey together, learning, inventing, and revisiting how we support our teams at our organizations. As I've been thinking about the way our work has changed, the following stats will ground us in the conversation. The distributed workplace is here to stay. 74% will move at least 5% of their previous on-site workforce to permanently remote positions post-COVID-19. That's from a survey that Gartner CFOs have completed back in March of 2020. And then the other data that's here is 55% of employers plan to allow employees to work from home at least once a week after COVID-19 is over. PwC reported on this in early January of this year. These stats are not so surprising given that we know what we didn't know now, and that is the way the world is working in the past is changing. And it does require organizations to consider how their company culture will support and continue to build an inclusive culture in this new virtual work. This is our focus for our time together. I want to just open up and say here to feel free to use the chat feature to submit your questions should you have any throughout. And I will certainly do my best to answer that as I see them come up. But I also want to make sure that you are aware we have dedicated time towards the end of the session for discussion. I've condensed my discussion points into the following 4 elements. I think companies should look to foster in their workplace inventive thinking, which introduces the new ways of thinking about how we work. Insatiable curiosity, constantly learning about what motivates you and your teams. Empathy, building up your empathy for others through cultural adaptation. And foster a willingness to grow. Explore our programming and use a human-centered approach as we are preparing for our work in this new virtual world. So let's explore together. Inventive thinking. This concept of new ways of thinking about how we work. Our leaders rely on us to be innovative and adaptable partners. That means understanding our business goals and the needs of our employees, recommending solutions that can support them as leaders, and helping them maintain and create new ways for their teams to be successful in this new virtual environment. Think about how many times the question has come up for you from your leaders. Hey, so what should we be doing, thinking, inventing to ensure we are making the necessary adjustments? And have you been making sure your team is adjusting? Think about how that question has been posed to you. And I'm sure you may be thinking, well, hello, I'm still adjusting myself. I am now at home with my spouse, partner, kids. I've become a teacher. I'm simply trying to adjust myself. All of this is real and painstakingly where we are. We are in a place where we have to think about new ways of how to work and support our employees and our customers. A pro tip here. Avoid thinking you will have all of the solutions figured out in one meeting. It will take time to assess and reassess the transition from this is how we've done things to this is what new ways we need to event. And these are the new solutions that we should be considering. Insatiable curiosity. This concept of constantly learning about what motivates you and your teams is what I'm asking you to consider. But I would love for you to consider it in two ways: your own personal motivation and your team motivation. When we're thinking about your personal motivation as a leader, building inclusive teams, we are responsible for doing the actual work of change, developing a discipline of learning. So what do I mean by that? As a leader, we have to personally commit to build a different and better future, which requires us to learn how to build inclusive teams and culture through learning tools and resources. Do the work to enroll in courses, read material on the subject matter, and seek to understand our role as leaders and how we feel about the change that is happening in our workplace. And then we must adapt and be in a position to support our teams. Your personal motivation is key, as you are essential in the process of ensuring we shift as the world is shifting. Team motivation. As a leader, building inclusive teams, we are responsible for ensuring we know what our teams need as the world shifts. So we must understand how work has been done and what shifts needs to be made in order to support your team during the change. Your workplace culture, meaning the in-person meetings, the offsites, the collaborative decision-making, has changed to online, virtual engagement, and new ways of working. As an inclusive leader, we must consider ways to keep our teams inspired. Administering surveys is one way to help determine employee engagement. To dive deep into whether employees need to work effectively in a remote or virtual environment. To understand what they need to feel connected and engage with the company and their immediate team. And an overall assessment to better understand the particular challenges in creating sustainable remote work. This is a time that requires more from us all. We must adapt quickly. It will be what gets you to the other side of this new virtual environment. Now, empathy. This concept of building up your ability to understand and sharing the feelings for others through cultural adaptation. This is one that I know takes a little bit more inward consideration, kindness to oneself, and an opportunity for leaders to really, truly excel in this area. Our employees rely on us to build up our ability to understand and share their feelings for others. That means, as an inclusive leader, having humility, accepting one's mistakes, learning from criticism, and different points of views, acknowledging and seeking contributions of others to continuously create an inclusive culture in this new virtual environment. Now, one may say, do I really need to be vulnerable at work? Am I really expected to share my feelings and consider the feelings of others? We are here to do a job and to do it well. Now, research says there are 3 components of empathy: cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. I'm going to focus on 2. The cognitive being first, which is simply knowing how the other person feels and what they might be thinking, sometimes called perspective taking, meaning getting out of your own way and really considering the feelings and the thoughts and expressions of others, and understanding that you can, in fact, consider a new perspective. Compassionate. With this kind of empathy, we not only understand a person's predicament and feel with them, but are spontaneously moved to help if needed, which allows for you to move out of that mindset of we're here to get a job done and let's just do it well. It really allows for us to hear, listen, and then act. So putting this all together, empathy doesn't just happen naturally for a lot of people. Our fast-paced society and work environment does not often encourage us to take a moment to connect with others. It is therefore a conscious choice we have to make. But the more we practice empathy, the more intuitive it becomes. So our role as leaders is to reconcile that you may have taken on the attitude of we are here to just do our jobs, and to reconsider the importance of your employee needs for them to feel seen and heard and to acknowledge their experiences. I know that was a lot. I do hope that you're taking notes along the way, but these are important points that we want to make sure that you as a leader is considering as you're building an inclusive culture in this new world of work. So the last element that I would like to share is fostering a willingness to grow, exploring our programming and using a human-centered approach here. Glenn Yopes, the author of The Innovation Mentality, says, it's becoming less about the business defining the individual and more about the individual defining the business. In other words, leaders are stuck in traditional approaches to leadership and are still promoting people doing what they are told to do inside the box they are given. With that in mind, let's consider the importance of inclusive programming, an opportunity to encourage ideas from our employees, cross-functional teams, and co-create solutions together, which enables collaboration. You will create a dynamic amongst your employees in those cross-functional teams that acknowledges there is a need for change. And how do we go about it as a collective? I think you'd be surprised when you just simply create that space for employees to, 1, give feedback, or for employees to be asked for them to share their ideals. That could be one way that they have felt connected in such a way that they perhaps hadn't felt before. I'm asking you to consider openly engaging in dialogue about your current processes, your meeting structures, communication tools, decision-making frameworks, while considering the ways in which employees feel connected to their work and the organization. Thus, taking a human-centered approach to your communication. The how. How, in fact, are you communicating that you want to hear from your employees about what's important to them, or about what their challenges have been since transitioning from being in the office and sitting next to each other every day and engaging in dialogue, that person-to-person, human-to-human contact? How you are communicating with your employee considers how you share your efforts to create inclusive programming. Your employees want to know that this is top of mind for you. They want to know that you're keeping the employee experience top of mind as you are planning and preparing for the work that we're asking them to continue to work on and the new work that's ahead of them. In doing so, you are considering employee sentiment, the what, right? That is driving accountability across teams to ensure we are addressing the new challenges related to fostering inclusive, effective workplaces in this new virtual environment. And taking a human-centered approach is to consider how to maintain and continuously build trust, the purpose. You know, we administer employee engagement surveys, and if you're not administering employee engagement surveys, we encourage that you do. But a part of that experience is to understand if, in fact, the employees are trusting us as leaders to not only lead the company, but to create such a dynamic experience in the work that they're working on, making meaning around the work that they're working on daily. And at the same time, fostering an environment where employees feel as if they have a sense of belonging, of being here. And that's through trust. Demonstrating that we are committed as a leader and as an organization to build inclusive cultures. Now, I hope that you have had an opportunity to take some notes along the way, because this does conclude my presentation on those 4 elements. I think companies should look to foster in their workplace. If they haven't already started, they are certainly walking away from this experience considering the 4 elements that I've shared before you. I would like to open it up for discussion. I encourage you to please go into the chat function. Feel free to ask any questions. Would love to answer those questions for you, or in Q&A as well. So here's a question for you that I encourage you to go into the chat and actually answer for us. What are some of the ways that you have communicated with your company, your employees, on how you are shifting in this new cultural environment? And the ways specifically would be, are you inviting folks to a town square, an all hands meeting? Are you using your regular email as a way of communicating to individuals? Or if you have some form of a chat feature inside of your organization, are you using that to stay connected? I'd be very interested to hear from you. Now, what I have heard from teams is that they're either doing all of the above. They're using, in this instance, Jamie said Slack. Individuals are putting constant communication out within their respective teams. Or in fact, they are ensuring that in any all hands meetings, there's an opportunity to reiterate at the top of that meeting how important it is for employees to connect with their leaders to inform what they need to be effective in their new remote environment, and how they're feeling, in fact, to stay connected. Like, what are the things that they need in forms of communication? Another question I'll pose to the group, the empathy. How many here would be willing to go into chat to say, oh, this is one area that I've struggled with. I'm so used to going to work and just being heads down and really focused on my task. In terms of building relationships, I have not done so much of a great job with that. I'll raise my hand here to say, early on in my career, I struggled with how to be a consensus builder, how to be a collaborator, and how to engage with individuals and show a level of vulnerability. I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want to see if there's any brave souls out there that's willing to say, yes, I've struggled with empathy. As you heard me mention, what's so important when it comes to empathy is the fact that over time, it is an opportunity for you to build up your compassion, an opportunity for you to practice that over time. And what I want to continue to remind all here, thank you, Marissa. You find empathy so much harder to build remotely. I agree with you, but here's what I've learned. The challenge there is to be intentional and not doing business as usual, to really take the opportunity at the top of any one-on-one or any meeting that you're having to simply check in with individuals to know how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what their experiences have been. Something as simple as that allows for you to, for yourself personally, like, whew, let me check in with myself. How am I feeling today? And then being able to openly share with a level of vulnerability how, in fact, you are experiencing today, right? But to not do business as usual and to really consider in this remote environment how to build in with a level of intentionality of checking in. Carlin says, it can be such a challenge to balance empathy for self and others when we're working remotely. It can be. It can be really tough to really balance. As I said, right now, a number of us are at home, not only by ourselves, but we may have a partner or a spouse and our children. And we have a number of meetings that we're in, and we're really trying to figure out how to be present and in the moment at work, and at the same time with our family and our spouse and our kids, if you will. And so what that means for you personally as a leader is you have to really be in tune with where you are with this adaptive moment where we're having to pivot and change in the way that we've worked. And so acknowledging first that it is a challenge is so important, but then also making a pivot to say, I acknowledge this is a challenge, but I need to have self-empathy, meaning I'm okay today. I realize I don't have it all together, but I'm okay. I'm still moving things forward. I'm connecting with my team, and give yourself that level of compassion. And then also understand that you're not alone. Your employees are experiencing this as well. It is certainly the time for individuals to do a pause and really take stock in what I like to say on how they're being their best selves and what does it take in order for them to be their best selves. The other thing I'll mention here, and I put a question out to the group. Okay, so not only have we talked about empathy and we talked about your level of vulnerability, is the reality that most, if not a quite number of our employees may not return back to the work environment, and that if you are returning to the work environment, some of the folks that you were so used to seeing, they may not be there. I'm very interested in hearing from you. How will you stay connected even when you're in the workplace, when you're going back? How will you stay connected to those employees that, in fact, may have remained in a remote capacity? I hope you're like, I haven't thought about that, but I need to really start to consider that once I return back to the workplace, how will I make sure that my peers or folks that are reporting to me is feeling connected? And what I say to you in this instance is to ask, what do they need in order to feel connected? Thank you all for joining Square Unboxed 2020 and for engaging me in this discussion. Now let's go back to our respective organizations, utilize the knowledge you have learned here, and build inclusive cultures in our new virtual world.